Okay, welcome everyone. So if you're tuning in, chances are you're already pretty comfortable with music production. You've got your theory down, maybe Cubase feels like home.
Right, you've probably written a fair bit of music, stuff you feel, decent about.
Exactly. But there's this gap, isn't there? Between being a talented hobbyist and actually working professionally, especially in games.
Uh-huh, that professional edge, that cinematic punch, and maybe even more importantly, the adaptability that games just absolutely demand now. Your tracks need to react.
That's the core challenge we're digging into today. We're looking at a course description that really hits this nail on the head. It talks about composers creating music that sounds, and I'm quoting here, stitched together instead of truly cinematic.
Yeah, and it's tough, right? Balancing that big orchestral feel with the need for the music to change on a dime based on what the player's doing. It's a specific skill set.
So today's deep dive is all about analyzing this 12-module course, the Gaming Orchestration Pack in Cubase. And the promise is pretty bold.
It really is. They're talking about guiding you to create a complete, professional, adaptive, three-scene orchestral soundtrack.
A town theme, an exploration theme, and a battle theme. All done inside Cubase, but aimed at that industry standard. Like, this isn't just how to use Cubase.
No, not at all. It's using Cubase as a tool to craft game-ready assets. Which brings us to the problems this thing is designed to solve. For folks listening, you might recognize some of these pain points.
Oh yeah, like relying on stock loops. We've all been tempted, but they can just kill immersion, can't they? They sound generic.
Totally. Or spending hours, days, layering instruments, tweaking MIDI, and ending up with what the source calls muddy MIDI. Complex but somehow flat and, well, fake sounding.
Ugh, yes. The complexity doesn't translate to impact. The worst one, maybe, when players actually notice the music, but for the wrong reasons, like, oh, that loop again.
Right. It pulls them out of the experience. So the transformation this course aims for is pretty significant, moving from those frustrating MIDI mock-ups to becoming essentially a game-ready composer.
Someone who can deliver assets that actually work in an engine, that sound great, and that adapt.
And the way they structure the learning is interesting, too. They call it the immersion learning breakthrough.
Right, not just tips and tricks scattered around. They use this analogy. Think of how people learn languages. Not from vocabulary lists, but from immersion.
Which I like. It suggests you're constantly applying what you learn. It's structured like an orchestrator's lab.
A lab where every single lesson, every module, builds towards that final project. Your own three-scene adaptive soundtrack. You're not just learning how to do it, you're doing it.
And you walk away with a serious portfolio piece at the end, which is huge.
Absolutely. But to make that happen over 12 weeks, the support system has to be solid. It can't just be videos you watch passively.
True. The source details this School on X support system. It sounds pretty comprehensive, 24/7 access.
Yeah, video, audio breakdowns, which I think is smart, for listening on the go, text resources, score sheets.
Checklists, too. Orchestrator checklists. And MIDI templates. It sounds like they're providing a lot of scaffolding to help you actually implement the ideas.
That's key. Turning theory into practice. And they mentioned visual score status, annotated scores.
Which is brilliant for understanding the why. Why does this voicing work? Why does that doubling sound powerful? Seeing it laid out, explained visually, that helps avoid guesswork.
Definitely. Now, one thing that caught my eye was the AI music coach. 24/7 support for Cubase or orchestration questions.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on that? AI coaches can be hit or miss.
That's a fair point. The proof is in the pudding, right? But the description suggests it's trained specifically on these workflows. Cubase for orchestration, common sample library issues.
Okay, so not just a general chatbot.
Hopefully not. The idea is it tackles those immediate roadblocks, the things that usually send you down an endless forum rabbit hole, as they put it. If it saves you hours searching for a specific routing fix.
Then it's potentially a massive time saver, accelerating the process.
Exactly. And then there's the composers community, which is just vital, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Working in isolation is tough. Getting feedback, maybe collaborating, just seeing how others are tackling the same challenges.
Yeah.
That's invaluable.
It turns composing from this solitary thing into more of a shared, critical process, essential for growth.
All right, let's dive into the actual modules. Section 1 seems to be about laying the groundwork, both technically and philosophically. Modules 1 to 3.
Yeah, setting the stage. Module 1 is Introduction to Game-Oriented Orchestration, and the quote really says it all. Learners explore the role of orchestration in video game music and how it differs from film scoring or standalone compositions.
That distinction is everything, isn't it? It immediately frames this as professional training, not just general composition.
Totally. Film is linear. You know exactly what happens when games, they're dynamic systems. The music has to serve the interactive experience.
So this module forces you to think differently right from the start, moving beyond just writing themes to thinking about how those themes will function, how they'll evolve or layer.
You're already thinking about adaptive music systems. How does this motif work quietly? How does it work loud? How does it transition? It's a different mindset.
Then Module 2 gets practical. Cubase Essentials for Game Composition. This sounds like it's targeted right at people who know Cubase, but maybe haven't pushed it for huge, demanding projects.
Right. It's a technical primer on using Cubase as a workstation for game scoring. Not the basics, but optimization for scale.
Dealing with hundreds of tracks, massive sample libraries that requires specific techniques. The source mentions VST expression maps.
Crucial for handling articulations efficiently. Switching from legato to staccato to pizzicato on the fly without breaking your creative flow, that's a huge time saver.
And managing large orchestral templates efficiently. This sounds like it tackles that muddy MIDI problem from a technical angle, too.
Absolutely. It's about setting up Cubase so it doesn't choke. Maybe using things like VN Ensemble Pro, or just really smart track freezing and archiving within Cubase itself. Keeping latency down, CPU usage manageable.
You need that technical stability. Plus, they mention advanced use of markers, the logical editor, tempo tools, all geared towards dynamic scoring.
Yeah, the precision needed for game cues. You need markers for transitions, for stingers, for loops points, giving the implementation team exactly what they need. That's pro level.
And that technical foundation leads into Module 3, Core Principles of Game Music Design. Quote, students learn the fundamentals of crafting music that responds to gameplay states.
So this is the theory behind the practice, moving from just composing to designing interactive music.
And a key concept here is vertical versus horizontal composition approaches. Let's break that down a bit. Vertical is about layers, right?
Yeah, like adding percussion or brass when combat starts. Intensity changes by adding or removing simultaneous layers. The trick is making sure those layers work together instantly, mix-wise.
Okay, and horizontal.
That's more about sequencing, moving from one distinct musical section to another over time, like transitioning from the calm town music to the more tense exploration music.
And the challenge there is making those transitions smooth, musically logical.
Exactly. Module 3 covers how you balance that, keeping a consistent feel for the game's world, using things like a shared harmonic palette, while still providing the necessary variation for different states.
It's about finding those unifying elements, maybe specific instruments or motifs, that tie everything together. So the battle music doesn't sound like it's from a completely different game.
Precisely. Building that sonic identity for the world.
Okay, so foundation laid. Now we get into the core application, right? Modules 4, 5, and 6. Building the actual music for the 3 key states.
Yep, this is where the rubber meets the road. Taking all that theory and technique and actually creating the town, exploration, and battle themes.
Starting with Module 4. Building a town theme. The focus is on crafting warm, ambient, and inviting orchestrations. Sounds pleasant, but maybe deceptively tricky.
It really can be. Because town music needs to feel stable and safe, but it absolutely cannot get repetitive or annoying. Players might spend a lot of time there.
So how do you achieve that? The description mentions layering ambient textures with light motifs.
Right. Think subtle beds of sound, maybe pads or gentle strings, combined with simple, memorable, melodic ideas. But the key is avoiding obvious loops.
Yeah, that's the death knell, as the source calls it. So techniques for subtle variation become critical.
Things like slight changes in dynamics over time, maybe shifting which instrument carries the motif, automating the mix subtly, using Cubase's tools to make sure that even if the harmony repeats, the texture feels like it's breathing, evolving slightly.
Keeping it interesting without demanding attention.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Then we leave town for Module 5. Evolving exploration music.
Designing music for wandering and discovery. This needs a sense of forward momentum, curiosity, maybe a touch of mystery, but without giving too much away.
Orchestration choices here would be different. Lighter textures, perhaps. More movement.
Yeah, often you'll use things like pizzicato strings, woodwind runs, maybe solo instruments carrying melodic fragments, things that suggest motion and anticipation.
And the adaptive challenge here is learning smooth transitions between exploration phases, like moving from an open field to a dark cave.
Exactly. Those transitions need to feel natural, not abrupt. Musically, that might involve shared notes or clever harmonic shifts. And technically, you need loopable yet evolving progressions.
So the music can loop if the player stays in one area, but it doesn't feel static.
Right. You might have a core harmonic loop, but you layer evolving elements over it, a counter melody that develops over many bars, or subtle rhythmic variations, creating that feeling of journeying.
Got it. And then the intensity ramps up. Module 6, crafting a dynamic battle theme.
Yep. Building high energy, layered orchestrations for combat. It's about urgency, excitement, danger,
Big percussion, driving rhythms, powerful brass.
all that good stuff. But it has to be controlled energy. The focus here is on adaptive layering for escalating battle states.
So not just one loud loop. The music needs to reflect how the fight is going.
Precisely. You might design several layers of intensity in Cubase. Layer 1 might just be tense percussion and low strings. Layer 5 could be the full orchestra going all out, maybe with a choir.
And these layers can be triggered by the game engine based on, say, the player's health or the number of enemies.
Exactly. It makes the combat feel much more dynamic and responsive. This module teaches you how to structure those layers in Cubase so they can be exported as perfectly synchronized stems ready for that kind of implementation. It's way beyond just writing a cool battle tune.
It's designing an interactive combat music system.
Okay, so now you've theoretically composed these 3 core pieces. But making them sound like they belong together and making them sound real, that's the next level. Modules 7, 8, and 9, professional polish.
Right. It's one thing to write good tracks, another to make them sound like a single, unified score for a specific world. Module 7 tackles this head-on. Thematic cohesion across gameplay states.
This is the leitmotif module, essentially, but it's deeper than just reusing a melody. It's about finding those threads that connect everything.
Like using a consistent harmonic palette, as mentioned earlier, a specific sound or mode that defines the world.
Exactly. Maybe it's a particular chord progression or a unique instrumental color that reappears subtly in the town, the exploration, and the battle music. It creates that sonic fingerprint.
And instrumentation choices, too, like maybe a solo cello always represents the player's inner thoughts, regardless of the situation.
Precisely those kinds of subtle rules. Consistent orchestration strategies that tie the different emotional states together into one believable world.
Then Module 8 gets technical again, transitions and adaptive layering in Cubase, making those shifts between states seamless.
Yeah, this is the nuts and bolts of making adaptivity actually work without jarring the player. Quote, students learn to program seamless transitions between states.
So learning the techniques like crossfading properly, designing effective singers, those short musical cues for events, and creating specific transition cues within Cubase.
Right. You need to know how to export, say, a 2-bar transition that perfectly bridges the end of the exploration loop and the start of the battle theme, both harmonically and rhythmically.
That requires real precision. And the source highlights conditional logic in arrangement. What does that mean in practice?
It means thinking like the game engine while you're still in Cubase, setting up your arrangement so it suggests how the music will be triggered, maybe leaving space or using markers or creating dedicated tracks for transition elements that will only play under certain conditions in the game.
So you're preparing the assets in a way that makes the middleware implementation much smoother.
Exactly. It's a key skill for collaborating with the audio team.
And finally, Module 9, advanced orchestration techniques for games. This sounds like where you really get that final layer of gloss, a deep dive into orchestral color, dynamics, and realism.
This is where you banish the muddy MIDI ghost for good. It's all about making those virtual instruments sound believable, expressive.
Using articulations for expression is key here, right? Not just playing the notes, but controlling how they're played, legato, staccato, spiccato.
Absolutely. Mastering key switches or expression maps to make your virtual orchestra perform realistically. And balancing the sections, knowing how to EQ and place instruments in the stereo field so they don't clash, creating that sense of a real orchestra in a real space.
Using reverb strategically, managing frequencies.
All of that. But maybe the most crucial part is humanization and performance realism in MIDI.
Getting away from that robotic, perfectly quantized feel.
Precisely. Using subtle randomization of velocity and timing, sculpting dynamics with CC automation like the mod wheel, not just relying on static velocity values, it's those tiny imperfections that sell the realism. That's the difference between a mock-up and something that sounds like a finished score.
That micro-level detail sounds painstaking, but essential for professional quality.
Okay, final stretch, modules 10, 11, and 12. You've composed it, polished it, now you need to deliver it correctly. Technical mastery and delivery.
Because Like the source says, the best score is useless if the game engine can't actually use it properly. Module 10 is workflow optimization and asset preparation.
This is all about the professional handover, preparing orchestrations for implementation in game engines, which means exporting stems and layers cleanly from Cubase.
Not just a stereo mix. Every layer of your adaptive battle theme needs to be a separate, perfectly named audio file.
Yes, mastering naming conventions and organizational best practices is non-negotiable. Programmers and sound designers need absolute clarity, consistent file names, logical folder structures.
It sounds tedious, but it's critical for workflow. You need to understand how to deliver an adaptive music pack for middleware, like FMOD or Waywise.
Which leads directly into Module 11, Integration with Middleware, FMOD and DOI's overview, connecting the dots between your Cubase project and the game engine environment.
So this isn't a full FMOD course in itself, but an overview of how your compositions get implemented.
Exactly. Exploring how to adapt Cubase compositions into interactive systems. Understanding the basic concepts of how middleware uses your stems, layers, loops, and transitions.
And crucially, structuring your Cubase projects for middleware compatibility. Knowing why you need to separate stingers onto their own tracks, for example.
Right. They mention reviewing case studies, too, which is helpful context. And there's that founding member bonus, a full FMOD crash course for those who want to go deeper immediately.
Nice. And it all culminates in Module 12. Final project, designing a seamless music pack.
The finish line. Learners apply all skills to produce a complete game orchestration pack. This is the portfolio piece they promised.
The deliverable. Complete town, exploration, and battle themes, with transitions demonstrating that adaptive cohesion.
And it includes peer review, refinement, and presentation, which is vital. Getting feedback, polishing it based on that feedback, that pushes it to a truly professional standard. You walk away with something tangible and high quality.
So looking back at the whole thing, it really feels like a structured transformation. Not just learning stuff, but actually becoming a composer capable of delivering professional adaptive scores.
Yeah, the source mentions this Tesla-style excellence idea, focusing on engineered transformations, and this 8-station quality control process for each theme.
That sounds intense, like really checking every aspect against professional standards.
Seems so. Things like articulation consistency, dynamic range, mix clarity, making sure it's not just creative, but technically sound and ready for implementation, avoiding shortcuts.
And the outcome is incredibly concrete. That professional town exploration battle orchestration pack, something you can use immediately.
Absolutely. And thinking about the investment, hiring someone to create a soundtrack like that costs thousands easily.
Right. The source suggests $1,500 to $3,000 as a starting point for outsourcing. So investing in the skills to do it yourself and getting that portfolio piece in the process.
It makes a lot of sense from a career perspective. That student testimonial they quote really sums it up, landing a gig after creating the battle theme and feeling like a game composer, not a pretender.
That confidence boost that comes from knowing you can deliver is huge.
For sure. And for early adopters, those founding member bonuses add significant value.
Yeah, that FMOD crash course, $197 value. The Boss Battle expansion pack, MIDI templates, $147 value. Those are practical tools.
And bonus 3, the private critique from a pro composer, $297 value. Getting personalized feedback on your main project, that's gold dust for development.
Absolutely invaluable.
Yeah.
So the message seems clear. If you're at that stage where your music is good but not quite game ready, not quite adaptive, this seems like a very structured path forward.
Yeah, moving beyond pasting loops to actually scoring immersive adaptive experiences.
So to leave everyone with something to chew on, if music is the soul of immersion and you're aiming for that thematic cohesion we talked about, what's your unifying motif going to be?
Ooh, good question. That little musical DNA fragment.
Yeah. That tiny rhythmic idea or harmonic color that subtly links the peaceful town theme to the intense battle theme. How will you make your game world instantly recognizable, even with the sound turned way down low?
Something to start sketching out, maybe. That core sonic identity.
Definitely something to think about. Start designing that signature today.